Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zesty, and in today's video we're going to be going over the top 8 tips to help improve your gameplay as the twins. Now, all of these tips that I'll be going over today are from my forum post, which should be linked in the description of the video. Well, I'll stop chatting now, let's get on with the list. Tip number 1. Never pounce onto an injured survivor when another survivor is nearby. All what this will do will allow the other survivor, healthier, it doesn't matter what if they're healthy or injured, to just be able to pick up the guy before you've even been able to get to them. So this essentially means you want to be pouncing on the healthy guy first, because if you pounce on the injured one, all that's going to happen is you're going to be in the 3-second cooldown as Victor, and then the other survivor is going to kick you, and depending on how far away you are from them, you're definitely not going to be able to get there in time to pick up your slug. So I'd definitely say don't pounce on injured people if there's someone else nearby, always pounce on a healthy one. Moving on to tip number 2, I would advise blocking totems with Charlotte where possible. This essentially means when you release Victor, or you have Victor already released somewhere on the map, you can just stand in front of the totem of Charlotte and protect it. I would say if everyone's healthy, this isn't very good, because you're going to have to come out of Victor and then go into Charlotte afterwards. So you're not going to be able to block the totem anyway, because you have to go and get the other person's, otherwise they're going to steal Victor. And I'd definitely say this should only really be used if all the survivors are injured, and it's actually very good if you've got Ruin, as it makes it last a lot longer. Considering like the Undying nerf just happened recently, it's basically like having Undying, but yeah, it's definitely quite situational, but it's still a tip nonetheless. Now I've tip number 2 out of the way, let's go to number 3. So with number 3, I've experienced this quite a lot. I'll go to pounce on someone as Victor, but there'll be some sort of thing in the way, like a almost like a hitbox in the map that blocks me from being able to pounce there, and then I pounce the complete opposite direction and I get kicked. So this tip basically means when you're as Victor, don't think that your hitbox is massive like Hillbilly's chainsaw used to be before it got patched. It's a lot smaller than it actually appears to be and what people make it out to be. So what I'd say is be careful when you're pouncing and take your time. Don't just go for it straight away, otherwise you'll miss and then you'll get kicked. Also, another tip with them is if you've got someone that's got dead hard or sprint burst, I'd say tap your pounce to try and bait out the dead hard or sprint burst, so then that way when they use it, because you're about to pounce on them, they'll get scared and then they'll use it, and then later on in the chase you won't have to worry about it and you can just down them normally. So yeah, that's tip number 3. Right, now we're officially halfway through this list. So for number 4, I'd say Victor is very good at having mind games against the survivor. Basically as Victor you can pounce on anything in the map and you may get destroyed, but no, sorry, you won't get destroyed, but you'll have that small window where you're basically invincible, because the survivor won't be able to get you because they can't jump up there unless they're hacking, and then now you're in, like, you can't be kicked by the survivor. So essentially what this means is when you're in a loop, if a survivor's using a pallet against you, you can pounce on top of it as Victor, and even though they can still vault over the other side, they won't be able to kick you. So by the time they vaulted over to the other side of the pallet, which you're trying to bait them to go to so that you can get them, they will not have enough time to react, and by then the survivor will be completely unaware of where you are and then they'll just get downed. So I think you should be using pallets and windows to your advantage when you're as Victor, and basically use them as a little shield so that you can't get kicked by a survivor. So yeah, that's for tip number 4, guys. Moving on to tip number 5, I'd say use Victor's pounce from high objects to gain a lot of distance around the map. So I've had discussions with quite a lot of people on the forums about this, and some people disagree with me, but I genuinely think you do go further when you're pouncing from, let's say, the big building in the middle of Ormond. If you're pouncing from there and you're wanting to get distance around the map, then I think it's perfectly fine to do that. It definitely does give you distance, because 150% speed is fast, but it sometimes isn't really enough when you're trying to get to that gen that's just about to be completed. So I'd say jump off of things like the hills in most maps that you have in, like the Red Forest for example, but I'd say don't do it too often because you may find yourself getting kicked quite early. So I'd say jump off of things like the asylum and the big house in the middle of Allman, but I would say don't really pounce off the hills too often because you tend to get kicked quite often, as when I'm playing them I do when I do that. So yeah, use Victor to pounce off of high objects. That's for tip number 5. Right, now it's time for tip number 6, and this is quite a controversial one. I've had some discussions with Linksy Time on Twitch about this, and she seems to think that I'm definitely wrong on this subject, but I honestly think that Toy Sword is a detriment rather than an advantage. The thing with Toy Sword is you may be able to get around the loop quicker and you may be able to pounce quicker, but in the long term you're going to eventually run out of the Toy Swords, and if you're constantly having to go for your Blood Web to get that, are you actually learning their power properly? So I'd say you can use Toy Sword, go ahead, but you're going to lose all your muscle memory from playing without it. So I'd say honestly just use something like Weighty Rattle instead, like to get everyone to make everyone stay injured for longer. It gives you the broken status effect for 20 seconds when you pounce on someone with Victor. It's a much better alternative add-on, and you only have 2 add-ons, and if you're using one that's going to mess up your muscle memory, I think it's quite silly. So yeah, that's for tip number 6. Moving on to tip number 7, we're almost there, guys. I'd say block pallets, windows and doorways with Charlotte, as her hitbox is quite big. So this essentially means when you're in a chase of Charlotte, this is quite a good tip for the shack as well. You can place Charlotte at either side of the shack, so you can place her at the window, you can place her at the pallet, or the other window that goes to outside. And this essentially means the survivor is having to work with half of the loop. So it means that they either have to work with that half of the loop and be at a massive disadvantage when they're going against Victor, or they can choose to leave the loop and then make it much easier for you to get them anyway, so it's a win-win situation. This tip is quite widely known already because people have kind of got used to blocking with Charlotte already, but I think it's definitely a good tip and people should be using it a little bit more often to enhance their twins gameplay. So that's for tip number 7, guys. Yay, we finally made it to the end of the list. So for tip number 8, I'd say you should be placing Victor in high priority areas. So for example, the asylum on Crotus, or in the middle of Ormond in the big building. So basically what this means is you want to be herding survivors as Charlotte. So when you're playing as Charlotte, you want to be going around and M1ing people to get everyone injured, so you have a lot more pressure when you release Victor. Survivors aren't really scared of you when you've got Victor on them. Like, they tend to just, it's quite memey really, like they just keep it on them and they don't really find it quite threatening. But once you've released Victor onto the map and he's in a high priority area and they have no idea where he is and they're injured, they'll start panicking, and genuinely they'll go into the main building where they'd like to loop Charlotte, as she's an M1 killer and she's quite easy to loop. So they'll go to that building, you'll switch to Victor and you'll have no terror radius, and they'll all of a sudden Victor will be in front of them and then it's an easy down. So this actually works against high level survivors. I play at rank 1 and I use this tip pretty much every match. As you can see in my gameplay, I'm placing Victor in areas that are very hard for survivors to see, and yeah, I'd say you should definitely be using this tip in your twins gameplay. Yeah. We've finally made it to the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. All the support has been amazing recently. I've been looking at the comments in all my videos and I can't thank you enough for the support, honestly. I just started literally last week and honestly, support is unreal. Thank you so much. Please like and subscribe the video to help me grow, and just like and subscribe. Like, honestly, thank you so much for all the support recently. And yeah, hopefully you can tell that my mic is a lot better than what it was before, and you can actually hear me clearly now, and the gameplay isn't so loud in the background. So yeah, join my Discord, subscribe to my channel, like if you like the video obviously, and yeah, have a good day guys. Thank you for watching.